Many people expect the Chicago Bears to draft defensive lineman either Will Anderson or Jalen Carter in this upcoming draft. I'm going to today talk about the top 5 defensive linemen not named Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. We're also going to regrade that Chase Claypool deal and what value did Ryan Poles really get into that deal. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
All right, Bears fans. So yesterday's episode live stream of Chicago Bears Central, we gave grades to the front office and to the coaching staff. And a lot of the comments in that video, well, a few, let me not say a lot, were, talking about the Chase Claypool deal. And so I want to take a look at the Chase Claypool deal before we talk about the top defensive linemen to come out of this draft other than Will Anderson and Jalen Carter. I want to really kind of reframe that deal and look at what the Bears gave up. So the Bears did send a pick that ended up becoming the 32 overall pick, which for the most part is it's basically a first round pick, right? Let's be clear. It's still a first round pick because of the things that were happening. And because of that, it really reframes that value the Bears could have had in this draft 2 picks that would have been basically in the first round. Now, what kind of trading power would that have had? Now, I get it. Had they traded the pick that they got in the Roquan Smith deal that would have been closer to 50, it really would have made that deal look a little bit better. But on top of Claypool having an injury that put him on the sidelines for a while, him having to learn the playbook, we just did not get the value that we thought we were getting from Chase Claypool. Now, so that right there, some people could say that alone makes that deal an F. And honestly, for the people that would say that, I would not be able to necessarily fight against that, right? I wouldn't be able to rightfully so look at that and say, hey, you're completely wrong. What do you mean? What do you mean that deal is an F? But realistically, you do kind of have to look at that deal and reframe it in a way that it's like, man, that deal is tough, man. That's a tough deal. And so, looking at it, and of course, people have hopes of T. Higgins, Devontae Adams, or any other big name wide receiver, but it doesn't necessarily seem like that's what we're going to get back. Now, had we had that 32 overall pick, that definitely could have been a gateway into that deal to try to trade for a T. Higgins, trade for a Devontae Adams. And now that we don't have that, we're stuck with Chase Claypool. Now, we have to give the debate of, are we going to extend Chase Claypool or not? That's going to be the biggest decision leading into this now with this Chase Claypool deal. And if Chase Claypool has a big game next season for the Chicago Bears with improved offensive line, all those things that we're talking about, it couldn't really reframe that deal again, and we could look back at it and be like, no, it actually was a really good deal. And really, when you look at the Bears having Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, Velus Jones, Equanimeous St. Brown, all already locked up into deals for next season, it doesn't seem like we're maybe going to get the upgrade at wide receiver that we would hope for. And that makes that deal look even worse in a case like that. So while Ryan Poles has made a lot of great deals, of course, with hindsight, it makes the Chase Claypool deal not look as good. Now, again, didn't get a chance to learn the playbook, was injured for a while, injuries on top of that with him being thrust into the number 1 wide receiver spot when Darnell Mooney went down. There's a lot of things that played into it. But right now, that deal does look like possibly one of the worst deals that Ryan Poles did make this season. Let me know what you guys think on that one down below. Now, before we talk about the top defensive lineman not named Will Anderson or Jalen Carter in this upcoming draft, I want to talk about why we're focused so much on this. Why a defensive lineman, I still do think maybe what the Bears go for with their first pick, no matter if they trade down or not, could be a wide receiver as well. But, with that being said, let's talk about the Chicago Bears defense and what it was this season. We only had 20 sacks this season. That is the fewest in the NFL. We were led by a rookie safety in Jaquan Brisker with 4 sacks. 3.5 of those sacks were accumulated by players that we ended up sending away, meaning that 9.5 sacks were due to, and just 9.5 sacks were due to the defensive line as a whole. So, and looking at the defensive line, you got Justin Jones, versatile. We'll see. Travis Gibson didn't really build off his 2021 season. Dominique Robinson showed some flashes, but just overall as a rookie, did not really show that he earned a starting spot in this season, in the upcoming season for the Chicago Bears. And then on top of that, the Bears created created pressure on 24% of the pass rushing snaps this year, which is also the lowest in the NFL. So when you bring all those things home, it really does point to the defensive line being an area that needs to be addressed. very, very early in either free agency or the draft. So today we're going to talk about the top 5 defensive lineman prospects in this draft, not named Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, just because the Bears may trade down lower than what we're thinking and may miss out on the chance to draft one of those guys, but add considerable assets to the team. The first one I want to bring up is Myles Murphy, who is an edge rusher from Clemson, and he is a versatile player. The reason why he's probably the next defensive lineman on most big boards after Will Anderson and Jalen Carter is because of his versatility. He can fit into almost any scheme in the NFL. He has the combination of size, length, and explosion that just makes him a monster on that defensive line in both the passing and rushing games. When you look at Myles Murphy as well, he and his projections, he was a junior in high school. He's 6'4", 275 pounds. This guy is a true prospect that also has the maturity to come in and be able to contribute right away on an NFL roster. So Myles Murphy is definitely the next one up if the Bears do miss out on Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. The next one up is Tyree Wilson, and this is another edge rusher. This one's from Texas Tech. And so he, while a little bit better in the run game than the passing game, at least in my opinion, he's a senior from Texas Tech, 6'6", 275 yards, 275 pounds, another really big defensive lineman that can do things. He spent 2 years at Texas A&M before transferring to Texas Tech. He has versatility to play both edge positions, and he can play a little bit of the interior defensive line, which he did do for the Red Raiders. So that could be a piece that you can draft if you do end up moving down in the draft to where you can't draft Myles Murphy or Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, to where you can add a versatile piece to your defensive line that allows for flexibility on how you build out the rest of that line. Meaning, if Travis Gibson or Dominique Robinson do show and flash more of that potential that we saw from them early in the season when they were in a reserve role that then says they need to be a starter, Tyree Wilson can fit in either other edge position, and you can line him up in that interior defensive line in certain matchups. He has great ability in the run game, amazing ability in the run game. You know, the pass rusher, he was better as a pass rusher when he was playing inside rather than on the edge. But again, the strength, the combination of speed, the momentum that he can build, plus his moves, he can definitely be a force for the Chicago Bears defense for years and years to come. The next person that we're going to talk about is Brian Barisi. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I could be murdering his name. 6'5", interior defensive lineman from Clemson. He's 300 pounds. Again, that's a big boy. He comes in. He has a natural ability when you see him. He just gets through gaps. He constantly gets through the gaps, and he wreaks havoc on the offensive backfields. Now, that can be both in the running game and the passing game. He was a 5-star recruit when he was initially recruited, and he was the number 1 recruit in the country coming out of the high school he came out in Maryland. Again, didn't necessarily show some of that in college football, but again, when you look at potential, he's further down. He still could fall, I think, in that top 10 to 15 area. But again, he can come in, he can play well. He only played 4 games in college football after tearing his ACL. So that is part of the reason why he may move further down and he could be available. Hell, he could be available if the Bears do go edge and Will Anderson. Edge and Jalen Carter. They absolutely could still draft Brian Barisi if they get an additional first-round pick, depending on where they go. Because of that ACL injury, he's definitely a potential to do that. Now, the next one up that I want to talk about next is Lucas Van Ness. He's a edge out of Iowa, 6'5", 264 pounds. He didn't play a lot in college football. So there's not a lot of, when you're looking at him, you're more looking, this is definitely a high upside pick, hopefully. You don't necessarily have the tape on him to see it, but he has a super high ceiling for the NFL. He can be very versatile. He's extremely attractive when you look at like where he can line up at. He can be that outside run defender. Passing game needs a little bit of work. He needs to learn to use his strength a little bit better as well. But again, another one that the Bears could go after. Lastly, Derek Hall, an edge out of Auburn. And so this guy, another big guy, 6'3", 251 pounds. This guy is an explosive pass rusher. And that's where the Bears need the most help at. Definitely a big pass rusher. He can draw double teams on downs, which can free things up. He's a strong run defender, but not necessarily the best run defender as well. He has raw athleticism, power. He does miss some things to his game. He needs to develop more so with his moves and things like that to kind of get more creative in how he can get to the passer or to the runner. But overall, again, that's another prospect that the Bears would have to trade considerably down for if we get that far down. And even then, if we get to the area where Derek Hall is on the board, we may go a different position, either quarterback or wide receiver. Cornerback, not quarterback, or wide receiver. But those are the top 5 defensive lineman prospects, in my opinion, not named Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. You guys can let me know what you guys think about it down below. This week kicks off our draft coverage. We're going to be doing different positions every single day, doing top 5 prospects in those positions. So let us know any guys you want us to make sure that we bring out or take a look at. But that is it for today's episode of Chicago Bears Central. Make sure you're following the show at Chi Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, chicagobearcentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text and our voicemail, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number 1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, bear down. Love you guys, man. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.